Welcome to the Spiritual AF Life podcast, a magical place where your host, Heather Danielle, psychic medium, will bring the mystical woo-woo world down to earth in practical ways. Tune in every Monday for your weekly reading and on Wednesdays to hear fascinating conversations with spiritual experts, uplifting stories, and deep dives into the metaphysical world, all to help you tap into the invisible guidance that's all around you. It's time to start living a spiritual AF life. Get cozy. The conversation is starting now. Welcome back to the Spiritual AF Life podcast. Today we have a very special guest joining us, Joanna, and you may know her as the co-author of the Food Healing Oracle deck, but today we are not talking about that deck and we are diving right into lots of interesting facts about the Akashic Records. So whether or not you know all about the records, or maybe you are, someone who is very well versed, you are going to be learning something new from Joanna today. And if you don't know about her, she was actually given the name Healer of Hearts over 25 years ago, long before she truly stepped into her spirit-led journey. And since then, she has followed her path of healing her own heart and has dived deep into many ways of being service to others. Joanna is a certified spiritual director as well as an Akashic record consultant and is trained in shamanic healing and is a craniosacral therapist. And don't worry if you get tongue-tied with that, because she definitely goes over that. And wow, that was really interesting. Anyways, she loves to teach as well as to write and is the co-author of the Food Healing Oracle deck and the Second Helpings deck, as well as the co-author of Smoothies Nourishing Wisdom Beyond the Blend. That is a really, really great smoothie book that goes along with those card decks. I will have them linked in the bio below. And her latest offering, just so you know, is teaching advanced vibrational healing for health and wellness. So as you can tell, and what you will learn about her is that she has her hands in a lot of different spiritual modalities and has been basically doing this her whole life almost. You will learn all about it, and definitely for almost as long as my life. So she is definitely one who has a lot of wisdom to share, and you are going to be leaving with so much more knowledge and so much more amazingness. And if you want to keep in touch with Joanna, all of her links will be in the show notes. So let's get right to it.
Hey, Joanna, thank you so much for coming and chatting with us today.
I cannot tell you what a thrill this is, Heather. I mean, just to even spend some time with you and talking about one of my favorite subjects. Yeah, definitely. Very down.
We need to dive right into that. So it is called the Akashic Records?
Akashic.
Akashic Records.
Yeah.
Okay, Akashic Records. Now, for those who don't understand what it is, can you give us a little bit of what it is?
So the Akashic Records, it is described as a vast library in the ethers. There's kind of like this little, thing going on that it's in the fifth dimension or it's higher than the fifth dimension. But it is this library that is a recording, a record of every incarnation we have had, every thought, every word, every experience that we have had in all of our incarnations, and it is recorded in this library. I know this might sound a little woo-woo to some people, but I was actually I've been doing the records. I've been certified as an Akashic record reader for 12 years now, but about 6 years in, I was receiving this healing from somebody. I was on their table receiving this healing, and they actually brought me up into the library, my guides, and I got to see exactly what it was, feel how it was. And it's actually vast volumes of books, but they're not the kind of books that you would pull off your bookcase. They're holographic. So I just was guided to sit down, and I saw this book floating towards me. And that's all I had to do was put my hand on top of the book, and I could see. I could see the lessons that I had to learn. I could see the experiences that I had. And even though this happened in probably Earth time in a very brief way, it was so mind-blowing to me. And the thing that I came away with was the vast amount of love, the vast amount of absolute unconditional love for the journey that we all take here, and we live these lives, and it's this dense energy, and we're raising our vibration as much as we possibly can here while being in these dense bodies. But we have so much love surrounding us for our journey.
Oh
And
my gosh.
so after you experience that, it's like I maybe it can be compared to the love of a loving mother who is healed, a healed, loving mother, because
Wow.
some of our mother's love isn't so awesome.
Yes, but like what you would think that
The
like a mother's
ideal
love
of that,
would.
right? Like just being enfolded and held in sacred space with no judgment, with no expectations, just being held like that. And so whenever I have the opportunity to open the records, I feel that for my clients. I feel that surrounding this container that is being held.
Oh my
And it's
gosh.
such a beautiful thing,
Oh my
really.
gosh. Okay, there's so many questions if you don't mind, because I feel like we have to
Yeah.
like unravel like everything that you were just talking about. So first off, you said that you went to this library of the records, and where is it located? Like it's not obviously in the physical plane, right? Is it on the other side? Did you go to here during meditation? Is it like one of those areas?
Yeah, you can. And a lot of people access it through dream time and don't even know it. So I'll go backwards a little bit before, and then I'll answer your question. But when I was a little girl, we moved into this house, and I grew up in New Jersey, and I moved into this house, and I was a Nancy Drew freak. I don't know, you might be too young for Nancy Drew, but I was a Nancy Drew freak and read every book that I could get my hands on, always bugging my mom to go to the library so I could get Nancy Drew books. And so it made me kind of think of everything as a mystery to be solved. Like
Ooh.
I was kind of like a sleuth in my I'm talking 9 and 10 and 11. And so we moved into this house, and up in this house was an attic. And one day the stairs were down because it was old school, where you have to pull the stairs down. And I went up there to explore to see if there was anything that I could that would be something to solve, right, about the previous owners.
Oh.
And I go up there, and there was this old trunk. I mean, like, you can't make this stuff up, right? This old trunk. And I remember going up to it and just being full of anticipation with my Nancy Drew sleuthing mind, and opened it up, and there was all these books. Well, me as a lover of books, love spending time in libraries, went and I started looking at these books, and in that trunk was books by Edgar Casey. And
Are
so
you serious right now?
at 10 and 11 years old, I started reading Edgar Casey and found out about the Akashic Records. Now, I always think back of that time as being very divine in my spiritual growth, even though I didn't know it for years and years and years. But that is what my original knowledge of the Akashic Records were.
Okay, we have to
And
stop right there because I'm not sure if everybody understands like how incredibly crazy this is happening because of out of all the books that could have been in
Mhm.
that chest, you are actually saying that there was Edgar Casey books in there that where you could learn about him and things like that, who is known as a sleeping prophet, who has a Center for Enlightenment down in Virginia. He is one of the trailblazers, like basically in the spiritual community. Like he is like a trance like medium. Like my mind is blown right now.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
was this like one of your first experiences with the spiritual world? Like is that how you learned about it? Like
Well, yeah. I mean, of course, I was in Catholic school at the time. And so, of course, Catholicism has that mysticism, blood, the blood of Jesus, the wine, the blood, the bread, the body, that was kind of mystical, right? But no, there were other books in that trunk, there were some racy books. Lady Chatterley's Lover was in there, and there was a book.
No, the very first one you said was Edgar Casey. So that one stood out. So to me, like that was planting a seed within you, and that just is mind blowing.
Plant a seed. I had a very volatile childhood, so like, many people did. And Norman Vincent Peale, The Power of Positive Thinking. That was the first book that I gravitated to. And then because I was a reader and I couldn't get my hands on my favorite books all the time, I just, even if I didn't understand them. And Edgar Casey amazed me because I was always a vivid dreamer, still am. And the fact that Edgar Casey, as the sleeping prophet, would go to sleep and have all these downloads and be able to read for people, especially the medical part and all of that. I mean, he was the grandfather of that possibility that we can all do that. I don't ever think it's designated to just one person. I think that we all have that capability.
Yes, and I was able to go to ARE, Association of Research and Enlightenment in Virginia, and they have all of his books, like everything that has written while he was sleeping, and he channeled while sleeping, and it is so intricate. Like I can't even understand it, and like I was like 30 something years old and couldn't even understand it. But now here's one thing that I don't know about him, and I don't know if you can help us out a little bit. I don't understand his association with the Akashic Records. And pardon me if I keep on pronouncing it wrong. You know how you get used to pronouncing it one way. But yeah, so how does he relate to that?
Well, that's what he was accessing.
See, I never knew that.
He was accessing Akasha. Akasha is the place of where the Akashic Records are held. And it is in the fifth dimension or higher. So when I went up into the records, when they brought me up into the records, they explained to me that it's not just on one dimension. Like when I'm tapping in for a client, depending on it's a very question based. It's almost like, when you're raising a child and that 5-year-old asked you where babies come from, you're going to respond to them in the understanding that they have, right? Same is true with Akashic reading. The questions that a client asked is going to be responded to in a way that is their understanding, right? And so when I tap into the records and and I'm tapping into that fifth dimension, with people asking, regular questions. What is my purpose? Why am I in a relationship with this? How come my mother was those kind of questions. But when I get clients that ask me, what star seed was I? How did I incarnate on Earth? What was my family like on Sirius or Pleiades or wherever? Like some people want to know some really more involved, I don't know, higher minded questions. Then it feels like the dimension, like it just feels that way, that I'm going up in higher dimensions to answer those kind of questions.
Oh, and I'm so sorry. There's so much to like unpack here. It's just so, I don't know, trying to wrap our mind around it.
It's a vast subject, because
it really is
so many things to explore.
Did I interrupt you when you were trying to do your story? Because I was just so like engrossed in the fact that there was an Edgar Casey book in there. So what did that do, I guess? Like what is like the ending to that story where when you saw the chest, and is that what just opened your mind up to all the different possibilities and then you started learning about Edgar Casey and his work?
I started, well, remember, I'm like probably 10 or 11 years old. So my capacity to really understand uh, grew as I grew, right? And I kept those books for a very long time. Don't know where they are now, but I have so many Edgar Casey books here, but none of them were those original books. There had to be at least 3 or 4 of them. I think there was 4 of them. And what it did in hindsight, looking back, was open me up to a world that I did not know existed beyond my own physicality, right? That is probably the first thing. And I went down, I was a child of the 60s and, went into the world of psychedelics and things like that, and always kind of correlated my experiences with those kind of medicines that they're now referred to, um, with opening up those channels to those other dimensions, even though it wasn't until I was in my early 40s that I actually began to put it into practice. So it was just this journey, that you take.
Yes. And I just want to say as a comment really quick, because I did not know that about you, until you're in your early 40s. And I think that so many people think that, oh, I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, I'm in my 50s, I'm in my 60s, I don't even care, 70s. Like, I don't think it's ever too late. And it's like, oh no, like I'm already too old. It's like, no, I think that I didn't open up into all this spiritual stuff. I think I started like my seizures was at 28. But you think
Mhm.
about it, there's time with meditation and getting to know things. So for my psychic and mediumship development, that didn't happen until I was in my early 30s, and I'm still only 39. So it's not like it was that
Right.
like far away. So I love that you shared those little details with us, because I feel like many of us feel like we're too old or whatever. Like, because we always hear stories about people having
Yeah.
these experiences when they're 5 and 6 years old. And it's
Yeah.
like just because you have those doesn't mean that you were just all of a sudden like now, like, like
I think the souls coming in now are probably maybe more leaning that way as we have evolved, right? And our DNA has evolved. So yeah, I think people are coming into that awareness maybe from the time of their birth or whatever, because I have met some unbelievable souls that are 18, 19, 20, and they are already so uh advanced, in their spiritual awareness,
I'm starting to notice that too, because there's been a
yeah.
lot more people opening up at a much like younger age. I get a lot of
Mhm.
messages too, being like, how to help my child who's intuitive, who is sensitive, who is seeing things. And it's like, wow, like it really is. It's like that third wave, I believe they say, of coming in to really help our planet. Oh, oh my
It's
gosh.
beautiful, right? It's
It
so beautiful.
yes.
When I get somebody that comes in, like, because Akashic Records, of course, isn't all what I do. I'm a craniosacral therapist and I work a lot with trauma and PTSD. And there's so much anxiety in the world for young people. And so I'll have a parent bring in their 13 or 14-year-old. And they're like, I have crystals all over my house, of course. And they're like amazed at the crystals, and they want to touch them. And I mean, I see children from age 0 all the way, all the way up.
And you
uh,
said you're what kind of therapist?
Craniosacral therapist.
What is that?
So craniosacral therapy is a very light touch, close on therapy that helps the body to release energetic cyst, or helps the body to come into homeostasis. It works for pain, TMJ, migraines, but it also works for those hidden emotions that are within the body system. We work with the central nervous system and the cerebral spinal fluid, and it's like 5 grams of pressure, so the weight of a nickel. It is very non-invasive, but invasive. But what happens when you you get that fluid to be balanced within the cranium and spine, there seems to be this, we call it unwinding. Everything unwinds in the nervous system and the body gets to relax. I tell my clients it's like a week's vacation in an hour session. That's how the body receives it. So
You
relaxing.
actually touched the patients and that
Oh yeah.
helps.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
never even heard of this before.
Oh,
Is this
really?
more like scientific based or is this more woohoo based?
No,
I'm
no,
just
this
curious.
is scientific based. This was developed by an osteopath physician back in the day, Dr. Upledger, which is where I'm trained by and from. And there's all kinds of documentation on what craniosacral therapy and the benefits of it are, so.
Wow. And I have to tell you, I think that everything happens for a reason. Like I feel like divine timing, everything happens. So I feel like this is not just learning about this isn't just for me, but somebody else who is listening right now, because I have went through a lot of trauma in my life and I went through a lot of like even like sexual abuse, physical abuse, all that kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
And recently I have been thinking about the 5 love languages. If you ever heard of them, is it physical touch? Is your love language words of affirmation? Have you ever heard of that? It's called the
Yeah,
5 love languages.
yes.
And I was talking with my husband one day because he's the only one that can tickle me. But I realized though, once he tickles me, he can only do it one time and he can't do it after that. And I'm like,
Right.
man, it's so crazy that if he catches me off guard, it'll tickle for just 1 second and then all of a sudden it will stop. And I
Mhm.
was like, honey, I think that my body has PTSD from the being touched.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think that my love language is words of affirmation. I think it's physical touch. But because of my trauma and everything that I have went through, I never allowed my body to be vulnerable enough again to be able to accept physical touch. So for the
Right.
past few weeks, I have been actually working on like it's almost like, Bella in Twilight, how she has like the block and the shield up. I've been
Yeah.
trying to go ahead and release my shield because once I started paying attention to that, I can realize that anytime my husband touches me, even like not like just throughout the day, like
Right.
casually, I will realize that my body will tense up with his touch.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, Heather, it's okay, chill. And I have to like almost like start like healing myself. I didn't even know I was doing that, but then I could feel my body tense up right before I realized that I'm being touched. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought mentally I have healed from it. Mentally, I don't have any emotions around my trauma, but it's like my body still has it. Does that make sense to you from
Oh
what you
yeah, it's
understand?
that somatic response, right? So within the craniosacral system, I do somato-emotional release work. And that is getting that trauma from the body that we're not even aware of. People will say, I've done my work. I've been to therapy. I've done the journaling and the this and the that. And it's like, okay, but it's still in your body. The cells of our body carry everything, right? Every experience. The cells of our body are like the Akashic records. They're holding everything. They're holding the ancestors' pain and experience as well as our own. That's why it's so important for us to heal, because when we do, when we are able to release that trauma, release that these emotional cysts from our body, we're not only healing ourselves, we're healing the lineage. And that's part of our job, right? To come here. And you know how designated drivers for when you're out drinking? Well, we're all designated healers of our lineage if we choose to take on the mantle of that, right? So as you become aware, and I always say that awareness that you have, like all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, I'm aware that I must have some body trauma because of my reactions and responses to touch. That is the beginning of your system saying it's ready to heal it,
Oh
because
my
you wouldn't
gosh.
have the awareness unless you were ready to heal it.
Now, in that part, are you talking about ready to heal it, not just within my life being who I am right now, but through like my whole, I'm ready to heal almost like that lineage trauma?
Starting with the first layer, of course, starting with you, and then bringing in the ancestors to that healed space, right?
Okay.
So it's very I always say that it's the most important work that we are here to do, is
Yes.
to heal
And
that.
it seems like such a big job. Like when you were
It's a
talking
big
about it,
job.
it's like, oh my God, like this is like a lot of pressure. But I love how you said first layer,
Right.
deal with you in this lifetime. Okay. Don't
That's
be
right.
thinking about all of your ancestors and
Don't be
thinking that you have
thinking
all this
about
pressure
that.
on your shoulders.
No, that's not, you know, it's not about putting pressure or, oh my God, I have to heal this, because you're healing 7 generations back and you're healing 7 generations forward. That's a big job, right? So the only thing that we can do is be mindful and present to our own experience. And that's where coming back to the Akashic Records can really help you, because that's where the masters and teachers really want your awareness and focus to be. What do I need to know in this lifetime so that I can be whole and healed and complete, and thereby doing the work for not only the ancestors in my biological lineage, but the ancestors of every lifetime I've ever lived. I mean, it's vast, right? So there's 2 lineages, that biological grandparents, great grandparents, etc., from this incarnation. And then you have another lineage. That's all the lifetimes you've ever lived and all the families. And so it becomes a collective experience, right? So you're healing yourself, you're becoming more aware and more complete, and then you you are maybe not automatically, but you are bringing all of that healing to bear, which includes the collective. That's why, spiritual teachers will tell us, you know that's all you have to do is focus on healing yourself, because that heals the world. That's where that comes from.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it's no coincidence too that you might be dealing with a lot of the same things that your biological lineage has done, but then you also people who are dealing with that exact same issue, like they gravitate towards you, or you see some people, you're always attracting other people that maybe went through the same thing or something along
Mhm.
those lines, because it's like we're all like healing together almost.
Yeah, there's a resonance, right? So we resonate to people that are on our same frequency and vibration. And so we feel part of the tribe, like, oh, that's a kindred. I can really
Yes.
relate to that person, right? But then there's the other resonance, the wounded resonance. We're resonating with somebody's wounds. That's why people who meet their mate or meet their partner, that relationship becomes toxic, because they came together with unhealed wounds attracting each other rather than their healed selves attracting each other. Big difference. Like, he
Yes.
was my soulmate, he was my twin soul. How did it become so toxic? Well, maybe he was a soulmate to be a mirror to show you where your wounding is, you know? And maybe those wounds just kind of just said, oh, you have the same wounding. Because so many times we'll see a partner together and they've both come from broken families, or they both have had similar childhoods, and their wounds attract them to one another. Now they can heal together. That doesn't say that does have to turn toxic. They can heal together. But again, it takes awareness, it takes mindfulness, it takes, commitment to do that work
Probably both parts, I would assume.
on both parts. Has to be both parts.
On both parts. Yeah,
Yeah.
that totally makes sense. I think a lot of us can think back on some of the relationships and be like, yep, completely. And then like I remember with my husband, he has a completely 180 different upbringing than mine. Like mine was crazy and just colorful, and his was just stable as a rock. He is 1000% different than me. And it's like so funny. Like, I'm not sure if you know about this, but it's like we go through so many different books and spiritual stuff and spiritual beliefs, and we learn about all these things. And whenever I bring up the concept to my husband, he was like, oh yeah, like, he already knows it. It's like he's already like that Yoda. And I'm like,
Yeah.
now I know why you were sent in my life,
Right.
because I needed something to help me. Because sometimes I think like, oh my gosh, Heather, would you even still be alive? Just because of how, you beat yourself up, and how you just, I don't know, unless you get into spiritual stuff. Like spirituality saved me. I know that for certain. Like it got me much more healthier and happier. And that's another reason why that, I created this podcast and do things like this, is because it's like, okay, gotta get this way, guys, if you want to get healthier and happier. Did that happen for you when you started going down your spiritual journey?
Um,
Oh no. One second. You are I'm not sure if you can hear me or not, but you're frozen. Oh no. I don't know. Okay, I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. Maybe go out, come back in. Oh, 1 second. It says you're muted. There you go.
Sorry about that. All of a sudden, it was like, where was I? Anyway, I'm glad that you can edit this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I
Uh,
forgot where we were too.
So I think I was talking about when my brother committed suicide.
Okay, yeah, start from the beginning on that, because I didn't hear any of that.
Okay. So you asked the question of when my
Yes.
my spiritual journey started. And so at age 39, my brother committed suicide, and I had an experience before he died that really woke me up. I want to say woke up something within me, because it was a month before he died. We had gathered with the family to have a barbecue. And as my husband and I were in bed that night, I just was overcome with grief, like just started sobbing. And it was such a beautiful day, which it just seems such a contradiction, right? Of feeling this incredible grief. And my husband said, well, babe, what's wrong? And I said, I don't have any idea. I can't stop crying. And I said, I just feel like somebody is, the next time we meet, one of us will not be here. And he said, well, who do you think that is? And I said, maybe my dad. My dad smoked a lot of cigarettes, drank a lot. And, he was, of course, the obvious one, right? And it was about a month, 5 weeks later, that my brother committed suicide. And I realized that I was given that insight to help me to prepare. And there's lots of stories like that since then. But that was the first time I actually felt um, the hands of my angels or the hands of the Holy Spirit just giving me information, right? I didn't ask for it. I didn't want it. It just was there. That, of course, at that point, I was going to church, Catholic church. I was baptized and raised in the Catholic church, went to Catholic school for a time. And so decided to just, join in with a couple of groups that were ongoing. This one group was Christ Renews His Parish. It was a 6-month formation group. I don't want to get too much into that, but suffice it to say that that really started me on a path that has led up to this. Each time, each step of the way, I was guided. Like it was my parish priest, Father Sean Mulcahy, who sent me to Carolyn Mace for 4 days. Then he sent me to Barbara Brennan, who, for those in the audience that doesn't know, or maybe you don't know, is Hands of Light, emerging light healer who had a school in New York at that time. Probably this was back in the 1990s. Okay, 1990s.
Wow.
Yeah, and so he told me that I was a healer, and I didn't know what he was talking about at that point. And he said, I'm going to send you some places because I want you to. It was almost like God spoke to him for me. I was already in St. Thomas University for spiritual direction. That was a 3-year certification program. I was already doing that. And then after the Barbara Brennan experience, where I was visited by these tall golden angels, that I started taking classes in healing touch. So that was another. So each step took me further. So I was taking in classes. I was about to finish. You can take it in any amount of time, but there's 4 levels. And I was just at my 4th level to be able to finish when my husband died in a boating accident. He was 49 years old. And so I had that beautiful background of spirituality and faith in God. And not that it was absolutely devastating. I had a 13-year-old still living at home. And but that took me to a whole nother level. And I ended up wanting to do my healing work full time. And of course, living in the state of Florida, you have to be licensed. So I became a licensed massage therapist, hence craniosacral therapy. Hence, everything led to something else. And when I look back on this journey for the last 20 some years, it kind of even blows my mind, but I go into my own records. And I know that this was by design, by design. So how do you question that? And I
Yes.
still do because I'm obstinate and rebellious. I still question,
Yes.
like, why? But knowing that this was definitely why I was incarnated as me in this lifetime, in this time, to do.
My gosh, yes, because what I'm getting from this too is because I feel like I completely underestimated the records. I feel like maybe many of us who, have a little bit of knowledge of them kind of underestimate them, because I feel like everything that you've talked about really encompasses them, because it talks about all of your past life. It talks about all of this life, every single emotion, every single thing that you have ever been through, every single thing that you will go through. That's kind of like you kind of hinted at that, like even future things.
Mhm.
But now, how do we get there? Do we have help with someone like you that can facilitate the journey, or can you do the journey for us?
Well, what happens is in my training, I was given a pathway prayer, and this pathway prayer gets us up into the records. So if somebody comes and sees me, like I had clients yesterday, I sit down, we talk for a bit. First of all, I have to send them information of how to prepare. there's a preparation for the records. No recreational drugs or alcohol for 24 hours. There's some guidelines, right? They have to sign a paper. It's pretty formal. It's more formal than like going to somebody for a card reading. And then I bring them in a guided meditation, and I open the records with the pathway prayer. And then once I'm in the records, I'll get information, but basically it's question led. So they have already known that they come with their questions of what they want to know. And the masters and teachers almost always answer every question, but if you're wanting information that cannot be revealed, especially if it comes to somebody else's journey, right? And they also don't take you too far into the future, because they're all about present moment. They're all about present lifetime, present moment. So they'll tell you a past life because it still is something you're working through in your present lifetime, but they won't necessarily linger there unless, it's so interesting to me, Heather, that every single reading is different. Every single, like, there's a different vibe. There's different guides that come in, sometimes crossed over. Loved ones will come in or with a message. It's just so different. And I never know what to expect. I do not consider myself a psychic medium, but I can't deny the fact that I do receive messages from some of the loved ones that will come in that have a message.
Can you give us a couple like examples or some of the most common questions that people ask? Because to me, that would be very difficult. It's like, oh my gosh, like, okay, I don't even know where to begin with some of these questions that I would even begin to ask.
A lot of what am I here for? What am I here to do? Am I on the path that is going to get me to the main purpose of my life? Those are very common. Relationship questions, why am I in this relationship? Or, why did this accident happen? Or, mundane things. So those kind of questions come in a lot more than, other questions. But some people are very, very inventive, and they have a vast curiosity to know, their place on the earth. Some people say, should I move here? Should I move there? Why was I born in this state versus,
Wow.
so it's just any question that you can possibly imagine. I have done this, as I said, professionally for 12 years. So I've gotten all kinds of questions. Some people feel like they have a relationship. This one, in fact, he has a unbelievable testimonial on my website. This one man that I read for, and he had this relationship in the cosmos with John Lennon. And so I didn't know that, but John Lennon came. It was just so kind of bizarre how that laid itself out. A lot of medical questions as well. I am able to do a scan of their body. If there's medical questions, they give me that information to see where maybe there could be an adjustment. Sometimes they give book recommendations or supplement recommendations. And sometimes it's, very practical advice for them. Sometimes they're kind of firm and give a course correction in, erroneous thoughts and erroneous thinking that isn't serving them very well. So, it's, like I said, each experience is so unique and the experiences are so vast.
Oh my gosh.
Very
Now,
interesting.
is this something that you can do online, that you offer online, like a virtual session?
Yeah, I don't offer it where I'm looking at the person, because in the records, but I do phone readings, and I do gallery readings. So I'll gather a group of people will be gathered. And in fact, I have a couple gallery readings in May. And I love those because people get a taste of what that feels like to be in the records, but they come in. I have a minimum of 6 people and a maximum of 16 because when I first started doing them, like I would have 24 people in a room, and that got to be a little too much. So I had to put a maximum on there. But they get to write one question. I guide them in the meditation, and I give them some time to ask a question, and then anonymously they fold them up and they put them in a bowl and give them to me. And then the masters and teachers, I pick one and answer the question. Um, and nobody has to know who they are, right?
Oh,
So
that's interesting. Do you do that online as well, the galleries?
I want to. So far, I haven't had anybody ask me to host one online, but I would love to do that. I think that would be such a great thing. I know when Lainey and I were doing the food healing oracle deck shows, that there was a show that we did where she curated the questions that were coming in and would just give them to me without me knowing who they were. And I opened the records on that podcast and was able to just answer the questions. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Okay, because I just feel like everybody now is just so curious, about like their records. They want to have their questions answered. And I think that would be a really fun time to do with like a girl
Yeah,
group,
you want to host a you want to host a gallery on Zoom? We can do that. That would be fun.
Yes. And so now where would they go? Like, what is your website? Are you on social?
Yeah, joannasalerno.com. And yeah, I've been trying to get some revamping done of my website, but joannasalerno.com, and you can read about the records and read about craniosacral therapy and heart-centered therapy and all the things that I do there.
What about the cranial sacral therapy? Do you do that virtually as well?
During COVID, I did. In fact, I took a class from Upledger, the training institute, because they were starting to do that. And I had some really, very cool experiences doing it long distance. I do long distance healing. I've done remote healing for as long as I've been a healing touch practitioner. But I really like the hands-on, except sometimes with some clients, I get more information remotely. It's just
Yes.
so,
Yes.
you know how that works, right?
Yes.
It's like
And
they're not in the way with the walls and whatever. You just can go into their etheric realm and etheric space and just pull things out.
I love that you bring up healing touch because that is a healing modality that we don't hear a lot about. In fact, I went for a massage one day and the woman was giving me a massage and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, she is giving me Reiki. Like I can feel the healing coming out of her hands. I was like, I don't think that she even realizes that she's doing it. And I didn't know this, but when I left the studio or whatever that I was in, they actually had a healing touch school within that same studio. So I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, she was giving me healing touch energy. That's what it was. Like I could freaking feel it. But how would you describe healing touch really quick for those who don't know what it is?
Well, it's an energetic modality. It's a biofield modality. It addresses the 5 layers of the energetic field as well as the chakra system. It helps to release pain, activate systems within the body that might not be working. It's similar, but not to craniosacral therapy. The difference with craniosacral therapy, it's actually doing something with the body system. Healing touch can affect it, but it's not manipulating it. So there's a little bit of manipulation in terms of, like, when you get a massage, your body's being manipulated, right? Well, your cerebral spinal fluid is being manipulated a bit in order for it to bring back into balance. With healing touch, it's just addressing the wonderful, system that we have all received. When you what I learned in healing touch is illness comes in to our auric field first, like the layers, our outermost layer of our auric field. And if we are doing our work, meditation, and doing the work to raise our vibration, that illness will not be able to come into the body. But it's only coming into the body when the frequency and vibration that we're holding is at a lower hertz. Because I also teach sound healing. So, I teach advanced vibrational healing courses. And that's one of the things that I teach. If you take care of this, you won't have to take care of this.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And if anybody doesn't know what she's talking about, she's saying you take care of like your aura, you take care of your energy field, then it's going to be easier to take care of this incredible vessel. Yes. Oh my gosh. I cannot thank you enough for sharing everything that you have shared with us. It has been amazing. I think that everybody is just like anxious now and very excited to see like what you would say about them and their journey and what's happening. And for any of those who are really interested, I am going to leave all of her contact information in the show notes so that you can go and visit her and learn more about it. Thank you so much, Joanna, for all of your wisdom. This has been, I feel, very much needed for a lot of us, because I feel like even just being in your presence and hearing what you had to say, a little bit of healing has like speckled down on us. And I think that it is a sign for many of us we're ready to start that process now. So thank you for opening us up to that.
You are so welcome. I just know that the time has come for us to really, really be conscious of how powerful we are, the job that we have for ourselves to do, the purpose that we're here, and why shouldn't we give ourselves every opportunity to bloom, to shine our light. And it starts with all of those places that right now might feel incongruent to us, and like, why isn't this happening for me? Why isn't that? Well, there's a lot of meaning as to the whys, and an Akashic record healing. And not everybody lives in my area. Find a craniosacral therapist. Do yourselves a favor. If you live in Fort Myers, Florida, go to a craniosacral therapist.
Yeah, so if you're in Florida, man, you got the hookup. You go see her in person, because that would be amazing.
I have people going, I want it all. Okay, how many hours can
yes, you're going to be busy for a while, because us spiritual peeps, we're holding on a lot of stuff. A lot of us, I say, we came down here with advanced degrees, if you will, to like check off a lot of these boxes. So we need to take care of this vessel and the energy and everything. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything. And
I appreciate you. You are definitely just a light that continues to shine so bright. And I know so many people that follow you and go to your classes, and the feedback that I get is just tremendous. So
oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Well, appreciation and gratitude is one of the highest vibrating emotions. So that's the thing, is that we're just vibrating so high right now. We're just so full of like that love and that gratitude. I can't stop smiling right now. Like my face freaking hurts. So thank you so much. I'm so happy that like our journey, our paths have crossed, and those who are listening, you're part of our journey too. You're part of our little powwow too. So we hope to. Yes. All right. Thank you so much, Joanna. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in to the Spiritual AF Life podcast. You'll find all the links to resources and more in the show notes. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on the incredible episodes that are coming up.